Millennials are at it again. What are they doing this time? Well, simply put, they're staying single. They're not getting married, and they're not getting married in record numbers. What's more, they're doing it by choice. So what does this mean for your church? Well, in this video, you'll learn the statistics, the motivations, and the action steps your church can take.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Pro Church Tools, the show where in 10 minutes or less, you're going to get a dose of tips and tactics to help your church share the message of Jesus while we navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm your host, Alex Mills, joined as always by the boss man, Brady Shearer.
Alex, only 27% of millennials are married. Now, millennials in this study done by Gallup were determined to be anyone born between 1980 and 1996.
That's a lot of people.
It's about 75 million people to be precise, which is the largest generation ever, even bigger than boomers. And to give an anchor to that statistic, comparing millennials to boomers at the same ages, 65% of boomers were married compared to just 27% of millennials.
That's wild.
Because that's only two generations. Sorry, the never mentioned Gen X in between. And there are a lot of different factors that are leading to this. Obviously, the biggest communication shift in 500 years.
I've heard that said somewhere.
Contributing to so much. We've got massive student debt. We've got extended adolescence. We've got any other buzzword and trope that we can
all kinds
insert
of
here.
Socioeconomic variables.
Absolutely.
The right
cultural
to work.
changes where culture-wide, just casual sex is completely accepted, and so getting married for sex, if you're not a Christian, well, that's not a reason to do anything. And churches are kind of in the middle of this, trying to figure it all out. How are we going to minister to this biggest generation ever, and the generation Gen Z that is coming up right behind them, that is surely going to carry many of the same characteristics? Here's what we know about millennial singleness. 41% of millennials said they would end a relationship if it meant getting a significant or life-changing promotion.
Wow.
Hey, do you? Said differently,
so.
Millennials would be willing to delay a relationship for up to 11 years, more than a decade, if it meant getting a significant or life-changing promotion. Why?
They're just on the grind.
There's a lot of things happening here. The bad economy. The huge stock market drop of 2008, right when a lot of millennials were exiting the workforce, exiting college, entering the workforce, entering college. It's right around when I went to college. And so you've got this terrible economy, and then you've got mind-crushing debt. Like, it crushes your mind. It's so big.
And you have parents who, a lot of our parents did not do a great job saving for retirement.
They did not.
So,
boomers.
Yes, we're
getting married. How did that help you?
So we're seeing that happen now, right? We have more debt than they did, yet they don't have enough money to retire. So we're like, shoot, I got to get my grind on. It's 2019. I got to work to pay off these bills. So
there's no jobs because all my grandparents are still working.
Right. It's a mess.
Then you include the transient nature of relationships, dating apps, hookup culture. This all makes sense. Does it make it easy? No, it's incredibly difficult. Also, this study came from Tinder. Thanks, Tinder. Millennials like being single. Tinder did a study. They asked millennials, have you ever made a conscious decision to be single for a period of time so that you can focus on other things in your life? 72% of respondents said yes.
Wow.
Here's what's interesting. A long-winning strategy for churches over the generations and decades has been to minister to families. Is that saying, win the kids, win the mom, win the dad, something like that?
I've never heard that, but sure.
The point that having like a great kids ministry is one of those things that can make your church more attractive. And
you get the whole family saved.
Yeah, something like that, right? How many churches have the name family in their name?
Of course.
Believer's Life Family Church. Trinity Family Church. Call me, text me, DM me when you come across Believer's Life Single Church.
Well, think about it. A lot of our imagery in church has to do with family. Right from the beginning of the story, you see man and woman procreating to populate the earth. And that's how, the human family began. We have lineage is so important in the biblical narrative. We have this imagery of Jesus and his relationship with the church as a bride and a bridegroom. We have all these images, these metaphors about family and marriage, frankly. But when we look out into our congregations today in 2019, the truth of it is we're seeing more singles in our church than we ever have. And so we need to make some adjustments here, because the gospel that we're presenting with these beautiful metaphors that are still, of course, true, may not sound like good news to somebody who's single and is without a family, without a partner. So it's like, what are we going to do here? And how are we going to provide value for people who are single, who belong to our church?
Alex is married almost for 2 years.
Mhm.
I'm married almost for 7 years. What we didn't want to do was wax poetic about singleness,
Right.
recognizing that we are no longer single ourselves.
Right.
So we talked to one of the singles in our office, Roxanne, and we asked about her experience. She's around 30 years old. Her experience in church, what it's like to be single. And she identified a number of different dynamics and unique individual experiences. There's really no one way to, paint a broad stroke for singles, because outside of the church, you have millennials that are purposefully choosing to remain single, to prioritize career, and they're not having to give up sex or physical relationships because
And
that's
just swipe right on Tinder and then go to
completely
work
acceptable.
tomorrow. Yeah.
And then you've got many individuals inside the church who are perhaps single, but want to find a life partner,
Yeah.
and who are saving themselves for sex for that individual, and they don't really feel like they have a place because singleness is now something that's happening a lot later in life.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't fit in the young adults group because you're not 20 to 25, and you're like, no, I'm a lot more serious about life than I was when I was 21.
Right.
But I'm also, from 30 to 35, I don't fit in the young marrieds group, and I don't fit with the young married with kids group, and I don't fit with like the older women's group.
So there's no place for me.
Where's a place for me? And then the other dynamic of, if you create a group, maybe you don't want to label it the singles group.
Exactly.
You don't want to have a group that's like purposely meant to like, hey, meet your future spouse. And then once you meet someone and start dating,
Got to leave the group.
leave the group where you found community in the first place. So the solution here, as is almost all of the time in church, is integrated community. What that means is that there's no simple sermon series that you can preach. There's no simple group that you can set up. But we as the church need to do what we've been doing for millennia, which is to be the church, allow people to brush shoulders with each other in the mess of all of this. All the intersections of culture, and the fact that people are having sex outside the church, and that's okay, and that's why they're staying single. And inside the church, we're only getting married so we can have sex, because if you found out you were having sex before marriage, you get in trouble, so you get married before you should have at 21, and then you only do that so you can have sex, which is probably not the reason to get married in the first place. No one's talking about that!
We'll be talking about that next week.
The remedy is community. Interest-based small groups are a great way to start off here.
Yeah, as
that
opposed
way it's
to
not life
category-based.
stage. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Of course.
But having both, multiple verticals, interest-based small groups, so that if you're married, great, maybe you like basketball. If you're single, maybe you like basketball. Maybe you like board games if you're single, maybe you like them if you're married. And that way you can get a convergence of people in different ages of life, different stages of life. And then if you want to have ones that are similar, that's okay too. But ministering to the whole, and not overlooking this massively, increasingly large group of individuals.
Yeah. I mean, do we have a comprehensive answer or solution here? No. Do we have, actionable steps that you can take? Yeah, we have a few. But most importantly, I think we can start this conversation, start to ask these questions. And start these conversations in our churches and our communities, so we can hear from people who are single and say, hey, what do you need here? How do you how can we integrate you fully into this community as if you were married with kids, to be accepting of everyone at every stage of life, wherever they're at. And so, I think this is a great conversation starter, and I'd love to continue the conversation, whether it's on Facebook or in the comments on YouTube. And I would love for our listeners to at least start this conversation at their church, so that we can start growing as more holistic and, like you said, integrated communities.
Even just being aware of this is important, because I was and still am so guilty of this. I'm in my narrow church bubble where most of us, I thought all of us, started dating, in youth group or in Bible college. Now we were married.
Right.
And then I stumble across this Gallup study, like, everyone's still single. And I was like, what? Wait, we all haven't been married for 7 years by 28? Shocking.
Right.
And so being aware so that we can be empathetic towards others is the first step. And hopefully for many of the people in Pro-Church Nation, most of which are church leaders and thus even more likely to be married already, we can be empathetic to so many others, as this is an increasing and growing demographic.
Yes.
And that'll do it for this episode of Pro Church Tools. We'll see you next time.
Ready whenever you are.